There are a lot of games where you play as animals. Most of those you play as an anthropomorphic version of said animals, walking on two legs, wielding weapons and talking. Some games let you play as a sort of mythical version of animals, where you have some form of power, be it magic or sci-fi. But there are some games where you simply play as a little animal doing animal shit. We wanted to take a look at some of these games, specifically ones where you play as a cat.
Welcome back to Moose Tank, where we stumble through the forest of game development with me, Victor, and Tess. There are obviously a bunch of games where you play as different animals, but we wanted to focus on cat games since cats, according to us, make for great protagonists because of their nonchalant nature. We'll be covering both games where you play as humanoid cats as well as regular old cats. And speaking of regular old cats, Stray by Blue 12 Studio is probably the best game out there depicting a cat exploring the world. It's also the most realistic rendition of a cat among the games we chose, in style and behavior, at least when it comes to the actual mechanics of the cat. You do have a little robot companion that helps with the narrative, but aside from that, you're just a regular cat knocking shit off the shelves and being a little menace. The story follows a stray cat looking for his friends and how it has to navigate a city full of robots to find them. On the outskirts of town, there's also a bunch of metal-eating alien vermin called Zergs. The robots have never encountered a cat before, since the last humans disappeared some time ago and the city locked down from the outside world and the hazards out there. It's a fairly simple story, but one that works surprisingly well.
Compared to most other games where you play as a cat, Stray sticks out from the rest, since being a cat is very pivotal to the type of story and gameplay this is. You're not an anthropomorphic animal with human-level intellect or an alien race of cat-like people. You're a cat. Plain and simple. Stray stands out from similar games, since it's a story-focused puzzle game in contrast to games such as Little Kitty Big City, which are aimed towards a younger audience. You solve puzzles to progress through the world using the tools that cats inherently have. Creating a mess or knocking things over, to make the robot people move around and open up doors to help you out in the search for your friends. Like we mentioned before, you do have a little robot buddy that helps you navigate this foreign world. He gives the player exposition and things along those lines when needed, and also helps with fighting the alien vermin later on. I do think it's a necessary addition to the gameplay, since without it, it would risk feeling extremely repetitive, despite it not being a very long game. There's only so much you can do as a cat, and having those extra mechanics from the robot helps the game to not feel stale or stagnant.
Little Kitty Big City, created by Double Dagger Studio, is also one of the more realistic games when it comes to portraying a cat and its behavior. You can jump around everywhere, knock things over, and get scratches from people walking by. It is also, just like Stray, sort of a puzzle platformer, but aimed more towards younger gamers. The story follows a cat who falls down from their resting place and needs to get back home. And to do so, they need to help various other animals with little tasks. It's very cute and surprisingly fun to play. The Backstreets of Tokyo vibe the game has going for it is something that I am very weak for, hence my love for the Persona games. The aesthetic just speaks to me. The gameplay is pretty simple but still competent. The puzzles and traversal is not particularly difficult, but it doesn't really need to be considering the target audience. So if you're looking for something more difficult and lower heavy, maybe try something else. But if you just want to be a cat for an hour or two, then this might just scratch that itch. Bonus for having cute hats for the cat to wear. Always adorable.
And speaking of more difficult cat games, Nine Souls is a 2D platformer Souls-like, and a very competent one at that. Developer Red Candle Games describe it as Tau-punk, which is very fitting. The art style is absolutely gorgeous, with its hand-drawn style and a mix of futuristic sci-fi and Taoism-inspired fantasy. You play as Yi, a Solarian, which is an alien race of cats, who awakes from his centuries-long slumber by a young boy. There is quite a lot more to the story, but since it's such a lore-heavy game with a beautiful story, we don't want to spoil anything and rather urge you to play it for yourselves. There are obviously a lot of themes of Taoism within the game, with nature and balance being very prominent, as well as the battle of science versus spirituality. It's definitely a game that is best experienced by playing it, which I know sounds pretty obvious. But some story-focused games are pretty easily digested and still great even if you're not personally playing them. Nine Souls essentially falls in the same vein of games as Hollow Knight. Extremely well-designed Souls-like platformers with some of the most astonishing art direction in video games. It's no wonder why it's such a beloved game, and since you technically play as a cat, we wanted to bring it to light a little. As we peruse the multiple cat games that exist online, it's pretty clear why this one stands out, with a soft gradient 2D look to it that reminds me of graphic novels. They even include comic panels to change up the dialogue, skipping normal cinematics for big events. This elevates the art style even more, paired with story mode on the difficulty setting if you're not a fan of Souls-like games, making it a relatively easy and stunning game for anyone to play.
In a similar yet much more cutesy art style, we have Night in the Woods. This world is full of different kinds of humanoid animals. There's all kinds of cats, rodents, bears, alligators, etc. The main protagonist, May Borowski, is a cat, but is rarely mentioned as something unique. The mom calls May a kitten mostly, and she has a tendency to walk on buildings and knock things down or destroy them. It's a basic description of a cat, merged with an angsty young woman who's dropped out of college and goes home to figure life out. The game is 90% dialogue, and the rest is finding little hidden nooks in the game where life happens. It reads as a love letter to finding out that even old people don't know what to do with life. They're all stressed about something. Even something as silly as maintaining a cosmic horror cult in a rural small town. Night in the Woods is a very story-focused game with very simple mechanics. But because it's such a well-written story with great dialogue, it's fine that the mechanics aren't especially innovative. As for why May is a cat and not human, is because, according to developer Infinite Fall, it's easier to relate to animals as a whole. And I can understand the thinking. They thought that if May had been human, it would have been more of a coming-of-age story focused on young women, which in turn might have excluded young men or non-binary people. Is it a little presumptuous? Maybe. But if I've learned anything from the internet, it's that men don't know how to fucking relate to women characters, which is sad as hell. So by portraying May as a cat, it's easier for everyone to see themselves in her. Because who hasn't felt the same way she has? Trying to figure yourself out while also figuring out what to do with your life is not exclusive to any gender. It's just what growing up is like for most of us.
The final game we tried is Crypt Custodian, created by Kyle Thompson. It features the best of both worlds if you're into chunky froggers and a cute cat protagonist. You play as the cat Pluto, stuck in the afterlife or limbo, and forced to clean it up as a janitor instead of moving on to the palace, where Kendra, the boss lady, lives and prohibits animals from entering. Armed with a broom, you hit monsters and solve puzzles to explore more of the world. I highly recommend it, due to the fun gameplay and having to remember where you haven't explored. It also changes up the level design depending on where on the map you are. Neon Crest has hidden platforms when dashing. The Edge has platforms that launch you forward. The Market forces you on moving walkways through warehouse puzzles. Or you can simply travel by bubbles and hop on crumbling stones. When it comes down to the cat quality of the game, it leans more into a visual style rather than actual simulation and characteristics. You can talk, walk on two legs, and have magical astral powers. Not your ordinary Felis catus by any means, other than some cute ears and smashing things, I suppose. But I highly recommend this game for casual explorations and lots of fun puzzles.
Aside from the obvious differences in genre and gameplay, Stray and Little Kitty stands out from the other three games in that you play as a plain old cat. This is definitely not something new, but maybe a little forgotten with the evolution of video games we've seen in the last 2 decades. They might not be for everyone, since the gameplay can be very non-dramatic compared to a Souls-like masterpiece with heavy themes of morality and flashy boss fights. But that's the beauty of video games. There is something for everyone. And with the success of Stray, I doubt that the trend of playing as an actual animal is going away anytime soon. I also think it's very interesting to use an anthropomorphic animal as a vessel for inclusivity in stories, since relating to animals is, ironically, very human.
There are of course a million other cat games, many of which we didn't cover here. Looking through Steam, there was an overload of cat puzzle games, farming games, and simulators. The ones we chose are the outliers in our opinion. Even though games such as Mewgenics also look unique, it's not really our style of game. And not only that, there are obviously a ton of games where you play as other animals in various settings. Games such as Untitled Goose Game and the upcoming Hounded are just 2 examples where you play as animals doing animal stuff. Are there any quintessential cat games that you think we missed? We'd also love to hear suggestions for future video topics, so let us know your thoughts in the comments, and until next time, meow!
Meow.